What is up, guys? Rick Hackus here, and it's Saturday, so it's time to go over some more amazing community designed exotics for Destiny. Now, this is the only series that lets you submit your exotic weapon or armor idea and have realistic concept art made for it. Now, that's because I partnered with the artist Benjamin Radiman, who makes these amazingly realistic exotic concepts. Now, usually I say that his art station is linked in the description down below, but today we're linking to his DeviantArt because his art station unfortunately got taken down because there was some issue with copyright. He just used a piece of concept art to compare two different weapons. It's pretty BS and we're trying to figure the whole thing out, but for the time being, his DeviantArt is going to be what's linked. But even with all that going on, Benjamin still managed to make new exotic concepts for this week's video. Now, before we get started showcasing the 5 featured exotics, I am going to talk about how to properly submit your idea and some tips for getting selected at the end of the video. But without further ado, let's get started with My Gun Exotic Auto Rifle Concept by Solomon Kane. Now, this weapon has 2 unique exotic perks. The first one is Frag Out, and as you're seeing right now, it adds a grenade launcher to the underbarrel of this weapon. Using this perk is going to make your grenades do 10% more damage as they are shot out of the grenade launcher instead of you just normally throwing them with your hand, and they're also going to recharge 10% faster, but that's going to lower your melee damage by 10% and make it charge 10% longer. On the flip side, the other exotic perk is Execution Order, and as you can see, the gun changes appearance and it adds a bayonet instead of a grenade launcher. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to improve your melee damage and recharge rate by 10%, and adversely it's going to lower your grenade damage and recharge rate by 10%. So you kind of get to choose, do you want to focus on melee and have a melee build, or do you want to choose grenades and make a grenade build? And I actually really love the idea of this weapon, really getting to choose your path on what you want to select. Each different path is really going to add a benefit to your overall build. Moving on, the next weapon we're going over is the Crutch Exotic Heavy Sniper Rifle Concept by MacArthur Foster. Now, a heavy sniper in Destiny would be basically what it says. It's a sniper rifle, but it is in your heavy slot. Because of that, and the ammo is so much more limited, it is allowed to be a lot more powerful without being overpowered. So these things could kill easily. You can make them kill in one shot on the Crucible. I mean, just look at how many other insanely powerful heavy weapons are out there. Having to aim down your sight with a precision shot is not anything ridiculous. Now, this weapon is designed around the theme of it just being bloody massive. The first perk is called Hipfire Hurts. This weapon has higher bonus hipfire accuracy, but it pushes you back when you shoot it from the hip and slightly damages you. So it's just doing so much damage, you're actually going to shoot this weapon and your Guardian will go backwards. Moving on, the exotic perk is called Too Much to Handle. It increases the recoil but also gives it massive damage, and it gains a critical hit chance when sighted in. However, it is going to push you back when you shoot this weapon, again aiming down sights, and is going to do a moderate amount of damage when you fire this weapon. So I love the idea of this weapon, just giving you this massive heavy sniper rifle, and I kind of love the theme of it, just doing so much damage. It's so powerful that you're actually going to hurt yourself when you're shooting this weapon. It's basically like a massive elephant gun, but for Destiny. And I do like the idea of heavy snipers in the game. Again, you could very easily put them in the game. They would be totally balanced because heavy ammo is so limited. You wouldn't have something incredibly overpowered if you're using a sniper rifle that killed in one shot. I mean, for goodness sakes, it's competing with the Truth, so it's not like that's going to be incredibly overpowered. I think it would be a really neat addition to Destiny. The Sleeper Simulant kind of showed us a prototype of what heavy sniper rifles might look like anyways. The next weapon we're going over is the Solarium Exotic Fusion Rifle Concept by Peyton Barrett. This weapon's main perk is called Sunfilled. This weapon increases the duration of radiance by 5 seconds. And the exotic perk for this weapon is called Solarium. During radiance, this weapon gains faster charge time, range, and accuracy. Now this is actually pretty interesting because, obviously gaining all of those things is incredibly powerful, but limiting it to only when you're utilizing Radiance is obviously going to be the huge balancing factor. It's definitely a very interesting decision you have to make when using Radiance. Do you want to use your fusion rifle, which has all of these benefits, gains, accuracy, gains range, gains charge time, is going to be incredibly powerful, or do you just want to throw grenades? That's what most people do. Most people just throw grenades. But this weapon is giving you an incentive to use your gun rather than do it. I think it's a very interesting kind of tit-for-tat scenario. Which one are you going to do? Moving on, the next weapon we're going over is the Dying Dynasty, exotic hand cannon concept by Sean Conboy. This weapon is pretty clearly a new monarchy weapon, and I've always been saying that I think that factions should have their exclusive exotics when you get to, besides something like just a class item, an actual weapon. When you get to a certain level in Dead Orbit, in New Monarchy, in Future War Cult, you should actually get an exotic. Iron Banner should have an exotic for reaching, rank 6 or rank 5 or what have you. And that is a really good idea for giving people an incentive to play the game. Now, I do also like kind of the design of this weapon having the floating New Monarchy symbol. We do see this somewhat, especially with the Warlock bands where they have the floating symbols. I would love to have that incorporated more often into weapons, and perhaps being able to even customize your floating symbol on the side of your weapon. We can already change our weapon's color finally with chroma shaders, so why can't you have these new symbols? That is just another awesome step forward in customization. Now, the main perk of this weapon is Executor's Duty. The final round of this gun does weak burning damage, enough to prevent your shield from recharging, but not as much as the Thorn's burning damage. And it's going to do this damage for 3 seconds. Now, the exotic perk is called Dying Dynasty. 2 random rounds in the magazine suppresses a target's abilities, which is their super jump grenade, just like the Titan suppressor grenade, again for 3 seconds. Now, this right here, I'm going to go and say that this would be a little bit much to play against. Having 2 bullets in your magazine, having the Titan suppressor grenade effect. By the way, the suppressor grenade can turn off your super, so just shooting someone with this weapon and turning off their hammer or their stormcaller, that would be a little bit too much, I think. However, having 1 random round might not be that bad, and in fact, maybe replacing the last round does the suppressor grenade effect, or just having a random chance for a bullet in the magazine so you don't get 1 guaranteed every magazine. Maybe it's 1 every 2 magazines. That would all be different ways to balance this ability out, but I think just 2 in 1 magazine would be a little much. However, I do like the ideas going on here, and I like the concepts going on here of having the Titan suppressor grenade ability thrown into a gun. We'll have to see if that would actually work without being a little bit much to play against. Now, the last featured weapon we're going over today is the Astral Abyss, exotic sidearm concept by Tom Dagg. This awesome looking sidearm has the exotic perk called Stars in the Void. If the first 3 rounds are all precision hits, your gun will no longer do void damage as it does, and it switches over to solar damage, and actually the remaining rounds in the magazine are explosive rounds. It also does have the hidden perk that this weapon gains rapid reload when using it with a void subclass. Now, this is definitely a sweet idea. Being able to get 3 precision shots off the bat with your magazine is going to turn the rest of your bullets into explosive solar rounds. I think that's pretty cool. It's a little bit hard to get, that's the balancing factor. It doesn't seem tremendously overpowered, and it does seem actually pretty useful. Having explosive rounds, especially if you could actually make them do a little bit more bonus damage, I think you could get away with that, certainly without making this gun overpowered. So I think that that would be a really cool idea. I also like the fact that it's actually going to change elements. So you have void damage normally, but if you get the precision shots going, you can actually then switch over to solar, which is pretty useful if you're doing, a nightfall that has solar or a nightfall that has void. You can both of those instances use this weapon, or you can, if you see, a cabal with a solar shield, you can maybe shoot some scions, get the bonus going, and then switch over to that cabal with your solar damage now. So I think this is actually a really really cool gun. Would love to see something like this introduced into Destiny. I would love to just see some exotic sidearms beside the frickin' Dreg's Promise introduced into Destiny. So that's going to be it for the featured exotics we're going over today. At the end of the video, we're going to go over the few more exotics that were made but not featured. But first, we're going to discuss the proper way to submit your idea and some tips for getting selected. So for submitting your idea, all you need to do is simply reply to the comment I'm going to leave in the comment section down below. So I'm going to make a comment saying, leave your exotic ideas here, and then read my whole comment because I go over some stuff that you should have in your submission to help your chances out for getting selected. But these comment threads are going to be the only place that Benjamin is looking for these ideas. So don't leave your comment in the normal comment section to other random comments. Just reply to these official threads. Aside from that, some tips on getting selected are, firstly, make sure that your gun is realistic. Killing an enemy and turning into a bear is a really cool idea, but I doubt that's ever going to make it into Destiny. So try to keep your idea somewhat grounded. You can be creative, but be kind of, again, realistic for something that might be introduced into Destiny. Secondly, try to make sure that your weapon isn't overpowered. There's so many different submissions where something increases damage, something gives you an overshield after getting a kill. All of that is pretty overpowered, so try to make sure that your weapon is going to be balanced. It can be powerful, but it can't be too powerful. Now that's it for the different tips for getting selected. Let's move on and shout out the other creations this week. Firstly, we have the Silver Colt exotic hand cannon concept by TJ Smith 301. We have the Supernova exotic charge rifle concept by Adsy Findlay. And lastly, we have the Barbacan's Nightmare exotic machine gun concept by Nacho Ferrari. Now that's going to be it for this week's video. Remember, if you want to support this series and myself and Benjamin, all you need to do is simply rate and especially share this video. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.